Okay, so this is where we would hear the theme music. And we're on. Hey, how's everybody doing? Okay, so we have an unnamed podcast. I'm here with my good friend Mike Tishy. We've been friends going on close to 30 years. I think we had like a 3-year break. I think that's when we decided to see other people, which I think is healthy for any relationship.
Yeah.
You know.
I think you got really annoying, and I was just like, yeah, I can't take him anymore.
Yeah, probably I got really annoying. Which
and
might
he matured a little bit.
Yeah. So no, what happens is we're friends for 25 years, take a 3-year break, and then the next 25 years we're probably going to take another 3-year break.
Yeah.
So I was thinking this podcast should center around jiu-jitsu topics, but not necessarily have jiu-jitsu as its main focal point. Like, we can talk about other stuff too. Okay. We don't have a name yet, so that's your homework, because you're good at coming up names. What I don't want are like the typical really lame names, like
The ones that I would probably come up with?
that. No, like the off the mat or outside the dojo,
Yeah.
like stuff like that.
Locker room chatter.
Locker room. No, that's something way different. So a little bit about myself. I'm currently a brown belt studying under Jamie Cruz, and I am looking to open a school. Mike is a blue belt, currently training under Chris Civillo, and he's not looking to open up a school.
No.
So one of the things that I was thinking of talking about, seeing that this is our first episode, is talk about like our first introductions into jiu-jitsu.
The first day, or just
Like, it could be the first
beginning,
day, or
beginning.
like the first time you were introduced, or the first time you started, or, you know, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Like, for me, I don't really necessarily remember my first class.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to, like, the first time it had an impact on me.
Okay.
And it was actually a pretty violent impact.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to go first?
Sure. I wasn't even thinking this, because I was thinking first day of jiu-jitsu, but this is actually better. I always wanted to do it since like 93.
Well, I
Since
remember we used to watch the old UFC.
As soon as I saw Gracie in the first UFC, I wanted to do it. And seemed so time consuming that, because I knew I would get obsessed. And then you started doing it in like 2000 something. I don't know. And my introduction to it was you were going to teach me, you were going to start teaching me.
Right.
And I realize this now. I didn't realize this then, but you were a white belt.
I was like a 2 or a 3 stripe white belt.
Right.
Like, I knew nothing.
and
I had no idea how to teach it.
Right. So I was just like, we went in your garage, and I just remember thinking it was exhausting. But you showed me some things. They didn't stick so much, but how would they? We did it like 5 or 6 times in your garage.
And I also think it was like once every 3 weeks.
Yeah. But the one thing I remember is you showed me a sweep where, I don't know which sweep it is. It's like where you flip me over you.
Oh, yeah,
So
like
you're
a
in guard.
Tomonagi.
Yeah, you flip me over you, and you tell me to duck my head. And I went over you, and I landed right on my neck. I was straight up, landed right on my neck, and I was like, oh my God, that killed.
All right.
And then you were like, you got to duck your head. You got to duck your head. And I was like, okay. And then we went to do it again, and I ducked my head. The exact same thing happened. And I was like, my neck hurt for weeks. And I was like that just like terrified me. Being like, I never want to throw someone above me. I never want someone to throw me above me.
Well, at least now we understand it was because I was a shitty teacher
Totally.
as a white belt.
Well, yeah. I realized this later when you re-showed that. Now, 10 years later, I go to my first class, and like within the first like 3 months or something, you showed that move, and I was like, oh no. And I went flying right over, and I was like, I didn't do anything. He did the move right. So 10 years ago when he was yelling at me to duck my head, he was just letting me fall on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's pretty common. It's like
I think it's a good thing to talk about is like realize your level. Like at that time when you were teaching me, you thought you knew jiu-jitsu.
I shouldn't have been teaching anybody.
But you thought you knew jiu-jitsu because
100%.
Yeah. Now you look at it and you go,
not necessarily that, but I think that lots of people that start jiu-jitsu become captivated with it.
Right.
I think that it really works towards that delayed gratification center that we all have, where it's, there's a carrot dangling in front of you. It takes a little while to chase it, but then when you get it, you feel great.
Yeah.
So I think that really plays upon that, and I think that's why people become really obsessed with it. And I think the whole point, like especially when you're starting, it's like anything when you first start. You want to let everybody know that you do it.
Yeah, you want
you want other people to do it too.
Right.
But mostly it's, looking back on it, I was basically using that as my opportunity to say, I do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I was in a relationship with a girl who went to law school. Mm-hmm. And when she graduated law school, she was so enamored by the fact that she was a lawyer that anytime we went anywhere, all she did was talk about being a lawyer.
Right. It's a great sign of when someone tells you that they do something, like, what they do for a living or what their interests are. You can usually tell their level by how they talk. Right. And it's usually the more they talk about it, the shorter amount of period they've done it.
Right.
People who have been doing something for 30 years are so bored of talking it. And it's not a big deal to them. But someone who just started is just like, they're walking in a room just trying to find a way.
Right.
Like, I went out to dinner once with a group of people, and within me being at this bar for 2 minutes, a guy said, I do jiu-jitsu. And I didn't say a word.
Did you know who this guy was?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just met him.
Right.
But I didn't say I did it.
Right.
He said he did it, and I was automatically like, this is how he introduced himself, basically. And immediately I thought, like, oh, he just started. But I was like, when I first start, I probably have the urge to be like, I just started this. This is something I'm thinking about. But I also really know that is something you shouldn't do. So I just go like, don't mention it. Don't mention it. If I do say, I just started it, it's really fun. Like, I'll say it by, I just started. I can't wait to learn this. Like, I won't be like, yeah, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I don't even think that now at all, you know?
I think that's a really, really valid point. And I definitely fell into that trap. I remember, wanting to, because I knew we were into it. So it was like, I'm sure part of me wanted to be like, impress you and be like, oh, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing.
Yeah, you probably also wanted someone to practice.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So is that your?
No, because I got really lucky, and I realized this now, that when I started, you just opened the school. You just opened the school by me. Right. And that's when I started.
So I was running a second location for where I was working.
Yeah. And so everyone that was joining was just starting, just like me, and no one knew anything. So I walk in, I know the teacher. Right. I know everyone else in the class is in my same situation. They haven't done anything. So we're all going over the basics. No one knows anything. And it's everyone's first day. Right. Like, it's everyone's first month, Right. And I realize now that was very good for me. Right. It might not seem it. Right. But I can see that if I started in a place where everyone was going for 2 years and I walked in, I would be clueless because there would be no one spending any time with me. Right. And I don't think that necessarily a student who's paying and wants to go to his class should be teaching me the whole time, But I could see it's very I see new people come where I am, and I go, yeah, I don't know that I would continue because I'm completely the outcast. I'm
Right.
not on the same, not that I have to be on the same level, but it's not, they're really, I don't know how to deal with it, but it seems like it would be great to always get a couple privates before you actually go into a class.
Right.
Otherwise, you might do 5 classes and just be completely clueless.
Still be lost.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things. I think from, a teacher's perspective, I think the detriment of everyone being on the same level is you all learn the same thing.
Right, yeah.
So it becomes hard to feel that rush of success of hitting your first armbar.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So I think having that multi-levels is really important.
Yeah, totally.
But what I do think is, like, I know you said you don't feel like the higher belts should have the role of teaching new guys.
No, I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying I don't think if it's a guy who is, if it was a guy who was like, I got my life going on, I got my week, I want to go to jiu-jitsu, he's not paying to teach
Right.
a new guy. But if that's how the school is structured, maybe that's a great way to be like, look, here, when you come here and a new person comes in, if he knows it, then, I mean, it's great if he does.
Right.
But I don't think you can demand.
No, and I don't necessarily think that it has to be that obvious, is my point. What I do think is when you're a higher belt, you should be you should be accepting defensive positions.
Right, yeah.
So, as a brand new guy, you're probably learning some, offensive armbar from the guard. As a higher belt who should be working on his defense with younger guys, he should not be fighting that hard.
Right, yeah.
Which is giving you the opportunity to practice and the opportunity for him to be put in positions where he needs to practice.
Right,
defensively.
Yeah.
And I think all too often you see guys don't want to do that because
Right.
they think that every time they get swept, everybody's watching.
Right.
And the guy is and people are making judgments about him.
Well, there's a couple things about that. Is I do think that I can't fault someone who's has their own life and they just want to show up and get a workout in, and now they really want to roll, and that's
Right.
all they're really wanting to do.
Right.
It's like I can't fault someone who's going, this is the only time I can come this week. I got all week, I've got stuff going on. I come this week, and now I got to be the instructor or again, I got to put myself in this position while this guy tries this move on me. And but I really just want to, I'm stressed all day. I just want to go get a workout.
Right.
And now I don't. Like, I can't fault someone for feeling that. But I also think, like, for me, for someone who doesn't seem like I care that much about anybody, I'm so concerned with what the new person is thinking in the class. Like, I'm always just like, I want to be the person that goes with them because I know I'll try to make them feel.
So you're being empathetic.
Yeah, like I can't help. Like that's more important to me than
Right.
Because I want this person to like this,
Right.
And I want them to understand it, and I don't want them to think that where they're going is this bully, like
Right.
hard ass thing. I want it to
Right.
be like, because that's how I wouldn't want that either.
Right.
I would go in. I remember one of the first days I went in there, and I pulled into the parking lot and saw a guy who looked like a WWF wrestler.
Right.
And I was like, I just started. And I was like, oh my God, I got to walk in. I'm going to have to, like,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to have to wrestle with that guy.
Right.
Like, to me, I was like, but I didn't know him.
Right.
But
you made this kind of like assumption based on,
because you don't know.
Right,
You don't
exactly.
know. But that's why you start going into classes and picking
Right.
your person that you want to work with.
Yeah, and I think it's important to pick people that you want to work with based on different things.
Right.
So number one, maybe your focus on empathy is because I created some sort of like post-traumatic stress disorder with you by face planting you.
No.
So now you don't want other people to experience that?
No, it has to do with everything I've ever done. It's just the idea of like, I think I understand what motivates people, or like what makes me enjoy something,
right?
And I'm just trying to make someone else enjoy it as well.
So I think a big part of, like I've taught public school for 11 years, right. And I think a big part of any sort of classroom is the culture, and the culture that's established by the teacher. So with jiu-jitsu, it's a really hard balance because you have, brand new people, and then you have people that have been and even in like an all levels class or a basic class, be training for a year. Right. So what would be your guess as far as what would be your recommendation for like to strike a balance?
I really don't have the answer. To me, it would be the instructor knowing the students and picking the person that goes with the new guy based on,
like, almost
since
like
he knows
the
person. Yeah, like almost like that. You go like, because I would do that if I had 10 people in a room, 10 people playing guitar. I would go, the new guy comes in, I'd be like, here, go with him. I trust him.
Right. He's a good teacher.
Yeah, he's a good, and he gets the idea that he's not all about himself. He doesn't care if he's winning. Right. He understands the deal. So I would just kind of, and that probably happens, and I don't look around and notice that. Yeah. But I think like,
Well, I think that's a really, really good point. So my first experience, does that sum it all up?
I guess so. I mean, I can throw in that it's like there's so much you don't understand at first.
Right.
And you really do have to, you feel like, I think what I had to just make myself look at it like, oh, I'm just going here and getting some exercise and just doing whatever they say because I understand that I don't understand this yet. And it took until my whole group was in 6 months and a new guy came in for me to go, oh, now I get it. And it's going to be like that forever. It's going to be 6 months later, the guy who's at 6 months maybe, or like right now I still go, I feel horrible some days. And then 5 months later, I do something, I go like, oh, now I get it.
Right.
Like I feel like that process is going to happen for the next 10 years. Right. I'm going to be like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. They show me this. It doesn't work. Now I get it. And rather than, now I don't get frustrated about it. I just go like, things are going to stick. So
Mike, that sweet spot that hits, you think, right around 6 months? Because I think everybody feels it. Like within my first 6 months, I almost quit 4 times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if I didn't have somebody kind of encouraging me and pushing me through, once, again, like you said, once the new person came in, all of a sudden it became, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think that window of them defending, what you're going for moves that you and that people of your group are doing, and people of your group are defending effectively.
Yeah, they learn the defense when I learn the attack.
Right.
Yeah.
And so somebody who doesn't know that all of a sudden now becomes, oh, I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's probably about 6 months. And I see it with other people too. When they've been there 6 months, I go, oh, this feels drastically, this guy's starting to get it. You know? I'd say it's about that, yeah. But again, then you go through the thing, and then a year later, you just go like, I don't know anything.
Right.
And then 5 months after that, you go, oh, I feel like now I get jiu-jitsu. Right. And then you go, I don't know anything.
Right, Mike. I think that I think in any practice-based thing that you do, whether it's like music or jiu-jitsu, any sort of athletics, it's like you hit, plateaus.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of working through that plateau.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to look at it right at the beginning is just go and look at it as like you're being healthy. Yeah. You're going for exercise rather than thinking about, am I good yet, or does this work? It's just like, just kind of go, well, I don't want to go running.
Right.
Or I don't want to do this, and this is fun. Right. And you don't realize like it hurts or it's sore when you're doing it. Right. You only realize that the next day. Right. So it's a very good way to get a lot of good exercise.
Right. But Mike, you said something to me that I use all the time when I'm teaching. That every time you try something new, you suck at it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in history that when you do it for the first time,
Right.
you're the best.
Right. Totally.
So if you adopt that mindset of, okay, I suck at this, but all I need to do is work hard and practice,
right.
I'll get better.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's an important perspective as well. Because I do think jiu-jitsu is one of the things where the gratification and the success is really, really delayed.
Yeah.
You know, and so you almost have to look for smaller goals and smaller ways to succeed. So,
I mean, the goal could be show up 3 times.
yeah,
And then
that's it.
you've done your job. You know,
Right.
it's like I did it another week. I showed up 3 times.
Yeah. Good. So so I had, you know, we grew up watching the UFC together. And so I was really into martial arts because of that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, back in, that must have been like late 80s, early 90s? 93. There really wasn't much jiu-jitsu around. So I did Taekwondo. And I did Taekwondo for, you know, over a year, maybe like between 1 and 3 years. And I thought it was pretty badass. And years later, my buddy, he started training. And he got really into it. So in his apartment, he had this office that he converted and put mats down and all of this stuff.
Right.
And he invited me over to train. And so I came over, and he was like, yeah, you know, if you want, you can hit me. You can punch, kick, whatever you want. And he was maybe a 3-stripe white belt at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I'm going to light this dude up. Like, he's only been doing this for like 6 months.
Right.
Like, I've been training in martial arts for like 2-3 years, right? Like, I hit him on the top of the head once, and then he took me down, and then just bent me into a pretzel.
Yeah. Wait. So you were doing jiu-jitsu with him?
No, we were fighting.
Oh.
So, like, it was basically anything goes. Like, I could have punched him, I could have kicked him.
But was he allowed to punch you?
Yeah.
Okay. Why he didn't want to do that?
No, he like, I would try and punch him, and he would just take me down.
Yeah.
And within minutes, like, armbar me.
Right.
You know? And then I was like, all right, first time, that's a fluke. I can totally figure this out. After, like, the 5th time of that happening,
Right.
I realized, oh, I want to do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And then I got this, like, really hefty tax return. And so I went to, like, the local jiu-jitsu school and paid for a year in full. And then started training. And I had the same experience. I was getting beaten up by, like, a 15-year-old kid.
Right.
Who was a blue belt.
Right.
Who was 70 pounds lighter than me.
Right.
And I was, like, at that point, I was, like, lifting weights.
Right.
And I thought I was strong.
Right.
And it just didn't compute to me. And, you know, it was, like, a huge knock to my self-esteem. And I actually, like, I must have thought about quitting 3 times. But I had a buddy there who kind of kept pushing me. And I had already paid for the year. So I was like, I'm kind of stuck doing this.
Right.
And then I remember, like, right around, like, the 6th, 7 month mark, I remember getting my first triangle. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to really get, like, obsessed.
And that's when you started calling your friends, seeing if you wanted
jiu-jitsu lessons in my garage.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And like I said, you know, I think that part of me that has always been insecure, that, you know, work-reward relationship in jiu-jitsu, like, I think really appealed to me.
Right.
And so it became like, after that 6-month part, I was like, oh, I can do this. So then it became like I started trying to be a little more strategic with how I learned and, you know, all of that stuff.
I think the other thing to think about is, like, when you think of, like, when people go in for their first day, a lot of times the impression is, oh, this guy doesn't know any moves.
Right.
But this guy doesn't know how to tie his belt.
Right.
This guy doesn't know how to put the gi on. This guy doesn't know how to, like, doesn't know anything. Like, I think that people assume someone's going in and they know nothing. They don't assume you know nothing. You assume, like, they don't know jiu-jitsu, but they might just go, like, I'm not even sure I know what jiu-jitsu is.
Right.
Like, I just was told that this is something I should try and it's fun.
Right.
So you walk in and it's like, they might think they're punching.
Right.
They might not know anything. And that's where it's like, when you go like, shrimp, it's like, what's a shrimp?
Right.
I don't know what shrimp is. And even you think back rolls and forward rolls, it's like, now in front of the whole class, you got to, on the spot,
struggle
figure
through
if
something.
see if I even know it, if I'm doing it right. And
right.
I mean, that's what I think was so good about when I started. It was, I mean, I think my first class was just me and Chris. You weren't there. It was, I couldn't go the first 2 weeks.
Right.
I was away.
Oh, that's right.
And he was there the one day, and it was great because he showed me how to shrimp. Like, he
Right.
spent time with me going,
Right.
this is how you shrimp. Just go down the whole thing. This is how you do this. But if there is a full class, I wouldn't have gotten that, you know? And
Right.
then the rest of the time when we were there, it was like, we were all starting it. So I'm watching you correct the other guys, and I'm going, oh, am I doing this? Mm-hmm. You watch other people getting, but that's what you're seeing so much of. It's a lot of time spent on the really, really basic things for, almost like the beginning to me is like, you're just trying to get through the part where you sort of know what's going on.
Right.
You're not really even trying to learn. You're just like, let me just get through the class. And when they say do this, I actually do it.
Right.
Like insides, it's like you just look around, like you look around the room, you could follow people, but then sometimes you look around, you go like, this guy thinks he's following, but he's not doing the same thing that we're
Right.
doing. But you don't know those things because I think sometimes people might be going too much in their head, like, oh, I see his shoulders up here. I see his shoulder. And it's like, no, you're supposed to be focused on the feet.
Right.
It's like,
They're trying to make things a lot more complex than it needs to be at that moment.
yeah.
And I think like that's, as a teacher, I think that's pretty valuable because like jiu-jitsu can be very complex, even at the beginner levels.
no, very.
So it becomes, as an instructor, am I going to inundate this guy with trying to get him to perfect 20 steps or
Right.
10 steps?
Right.
Or am I picking and choosing, okay, well, here are the two most valuable things right now.
Right.
And let's focus in on that.
Right.
And I think that's why, like, having, at a beginner level, having, like, a structured curriculum that loops is really important.
Right.
Because, like, that first time through, it becomes, here are the two basic movements that I want you to do, that I'm expecting. Okay,
Right.
work on those. And then the next time that move hits, it becomes, okay, well, now let's add these few.
Right. Yeah.
And then it just becomes, and now you can add more and more because the guy has experience, like even indirect experience with a lot of the moves through the other things that he's learned.
Right. Totally.
You know? So I think that becomes like, I think once, if the instruction is a little too randomized, it becomes, okay, well, I'm only expecting you to do these two moves right now, but I don't know when we're going to get back to this move. And
Right.
it might be like in another 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So I do think that, like, for me as a school teacher, with having a school teacher background, like, finding ways to make teaching jiu-jitsu more efficient
Right. Yeah.
becomes really important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I do that, you know, with guitar. It'll be you show someone some certain technique and you have them do it for a couple of weeks and then you just let it go. And then you kind of go, in a couple months, you go like, okay, let me find a way with something they're doing to bring that back and
Right.
kind of go, now they'll be, you know, hit it again and put it to some use, but you can't really put it to some use in the song.
Right.
Because they're going to start trying to play the song
Right.
and ignoring the technique, you know? yeah, it's hard to. It's very hard to make a sequence of like the order that you're going to learn for every single person. You do have to go, this person, this would benefit going in this direction. This person would benefit to go a little bit in this direction. And there's too many scales. There's too many moves, you know?
Well, I do think that, for my school, I wrote a curriculum, but just for the basic classes.
Right.
And number one, it was designed to look. The fun part of jiu-jitsu is actually like live training. Mm-hmm. So the emphasis was, let's get to that point as quickly as possible.
Right.
Let's give people the information that they need, so within a month they can start passing the guard. Mm-hmm. Because that's fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing was, I do think that you need a fundamental literacy, like with anything. You know, you need a basic literacy of movements in order to excel. Mm-hmm. And so, like, when it comes to, okay, this is what you like to do, this is where your game is heading, you still need that basic literacy to keep progressing and learning new things,
Yeah.
So, like, I think, like, I was talking to one of my students today about doing the backstep pass. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, can't you just do this? Right. And I was like, yeah, totally. Like, that's totally great. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why I'm going to really encourage you to do the backstep pass is because the movement of that backstep is everywhere in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So the sooner you get good at that movement, it's going to help you be better at things that you like to do.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the technical stand-up. Mm-hmm. Like the emphasis on that warm-up isn't just because it's standing up safely. It's because it's so everywhere in jiu-jitsu that the sooner you get good at it, the quicker you're going to learn more complicated things that use it.
Yeah. I think that right now I'm almost at the level where I'm noticing there's probably a lot of drills that would benefit me, like just body mechanic drills that would benefit me that I wouldn't have. And it's almost just like clicking that, like, oh, it'd be great to just get, like, because I'll notice I'll go to one side and put a leg in a certain place. I put it in the right spot. Say I'm like trying to come up, I'll put my leg close to the guy's hip when I come up on one side. Right. When I go to the other side, I put it way out far.
Right.
And it's just it's like,
it's just because your body's used to doing it.
Because I always do it on that side and just go, but I've never thought about either of them, except I've been taught put it here, and I always went to that one side.
Right.
And when I go to the other, my leg just goes really far out, and the guy just pins it down and steps over it. So it would be great to just me going like...
Oh, so you're talking about from like enclosed guard.
Yeah.
So like if you were to sit up to go for like a bump sweep or a Kimura, on the one side you post your foot really close to their legs.
Yeah, and I block him in.
Right. And then the other side, it's way out.
Yeah,
so
it's like
he's
a winch.
able to grab a hold of it.
Totally. And I didn't notice it. I noticed it based on... When I went to one side, I could get my whole body up onto my elbow. Yeah. Onto the other side, my leg was so far out that I was doing like 8 other motions.
Right.
And someone said, oh, because you step really far out. And I was like, those are the little things where just sitting up, putting my leg there will make me sit up correctly. Right. And there's probably there's things like triangles, just putting the one leg over the other, which I know you do for drills. It's just more clicking now after 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's another important thing is like understanding that your experience with so many different things will let you recognize, oh, this is why I did this.
Yeah.
This is why I did this for so long.
Right.
So, next episode, I wanted to do this the first episode, but I thought we could wait.
Okay.
I think for the next episode, we should review Cobra Kai.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, we can give each other our impressions of it.
Okay.
Did you watch the whole thing?
Uh-huh. I watched it in like a couple days.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually on my second watch. I'm watching it with Risa, my wife.
I could also tell you that there was some spots where I fast forwarded.
Seriously?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, I knew what was happening. I was just like, they're dragging out this dramatic motion. I get it. I want to see the. It's like
so basically,
when I go into a movie and when I see love scene, I just go like, I get it. Just skip to 3 minutes. Let me continue the movie. You might as well just write love scene,
right?
You know, or driving on the mountain, thinking, showing the horizon. It's like, I don't need to watch 4 minutes of that. Right. I know they're giving the impression, but I just go, yeah, I get it. I've seen it in movies.
So you would probably say one of your strongest suits is your patience.
Yeah. Well, it's there's certain movies and stuff where I'll watch, or I like it so much, where I'm just like, I'm so caught that I don't even think about that. But when I go, I just want to know the end of the story.
Right.
I want to know the story. And then they get to part of the story with two characters I don't care about. I go like, yeah, this isn't part of the story I care about. I'll just go skip it. I get it. So, I always get it. I get the movie.
So I've actually like figured out a big part of our relationship. And probably why you took 3 years off. Because it seems to me like you have a very acute sense of time. Mm-hmm. I have zero sense of time. So that must be really freaking annoying for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. I don't want to, we've done it on another podcast where it's like, you had this thing where it's just like, let's go do this. And to me, I was like, let's go play racquetball. And to me, this was like, in 2 weeks on this morning, we're going to go play racquetball. I finally get to do something.
Right.
So too much to do, nothing I enjoy doing.
Right.
And I was looking at this time of like, you were just trying to fill up 2 hours in your day that you had to do something. Like to you, that's what it was. And you were like, I have to drop Max off. I have to drop off my son here at this time, and then I have to do this. And there's 2 hours in between. You said, hey, on this day, do you want to play racquetball? Because I'll be by your house. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like marking it down. And when it gets to that time, I was just like, we get in the car and you go, I just got to go pick up a tire. I got to get a new tire on my car. And we go to get the tire, and it takes 2 hours. And we wait at Costco for your car. And then I look at the clock and I go, I got to be back. And then you drop me off at my house. So basically my 2 hours of racquetball was, but it comes from the way we were looking at racquetball was I was looking at it like racquetball. You were looking at it like
something
I got to fill in this time.
Yeah.
So then you start realizing, I can't make the commitment.
Right.
Unless I really have a time for the commitment.
And then I also think that, like, as we mature, you know, like, I definitely know about... I know this about you.
Right.
And so, you know, for me, I know when doing this stuff, I have to more think in that mindset if I want to do this stuff with you.
Right.
You know? So now I have to make sure that this is what's going to happen. Or... I have to say, hey, look, there's the possibility of this happening. Can we play it by ear?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I heard there was a great... Eddie Bravo said something on Rogan's podcast that to me that was just like, I get that completely. He said he's like, I went and saw whatever movie. He's like, I went by myself. And they're like, you went to the movies by yourself? And he's like, all the time. I always go by myself.
So do I.
And why? He goes... Because then I can leave. If I don't like it, I just leave. If you go with someone, he's like, I'm not sitting there for an hour and a half in a movie I don't like.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes so much sense to be like, right, if I put on a movie at home, I hit play, and 5 minutes in, I'm just like, this is so boring. I don't watch it. Right. I shut it off and go do something else. But he goes through a movie, he just goes, I don't even want to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all about, it's the boredom. Even the boredom is the worst thing. Like, and when you go to do something, You may say I only have this much time, and then the person goes, but we wound up talking for an hour after.
Right.
Right, but we were talking because I was interested.
Right.
We weren't talking, you weren't making me stay there. So it's one thing to say, I don't have time to do something. It's, I don't have time to do something I have no interest in.
Right.
And that's what it really is. It's not that it's not that I or someone else doesn't have time. It's that
you'd rather be doing something productive.
you're an adult and you should be able to consume your time with things you enjoy.
Right.
You know?
Right. You want to play some UFC?
Sure.